when I tried to, at first I couldn't watch it, but then when I finally watched it because I wanted to see it, I had to like pause in a lot of parts because it was really hard for me to watch it. It brought back a lot of stuff, and when I saw the camera film of mother and father, it was very like scary, like my heart just dropped to my stomach. It was like very, very nervous.
Crowd gathered around her because it did ping and it went off and you got caught.
Behind the cover, yes.
This member decapitated. It's probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
Tend to Life with Elise.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime, the good, the bad, the ugly, the conspiracies. We talk about it all. So if you are brand new, stopping by for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy today's video and subscribe by hitting that subscribe button below. And for all of you returning subscribers and 10 to Lifers, you already know what it is we do here, so welcome back, and I hope you enjoy today's video as well. Now just really quickly before we get started, I want to address the elephant in the room because I got some flack for what I'm wearing by my husband this morning. Basically, I bought this comfy Chicago Bull sweatshirt because I thought, oh, it's cute. I'll wear it with like jeans, leggings. And he said, can you name a Chicago Bull player to me? And I, of course, said Michael Jordan. And then he said, okay, name another one. And I just started spitting off names. I was, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, LeBron, Kobe. I don't know. And all he did was then laugh and walk away. So if you are thinking about commenting to ask me, do you really like the Bulls? Is that why you're wearing that? The answer is no. I'm just like one of those people who wears like, a Guns N' Roses top, although I do listen to Guns N' Roses, and has no idea what song they've ever produced. So let's just get that out right now. Today's case that we are going to be talking about is actually an update in one of the very first cases that I ever covered on this channel, back when this channel was just itty bitty about a year ago. And it is the case of the Turpin family in California, which is obviously very close to where I live now in California too, as far as what city they lived in.
It was just that, basically reliving it, and it was very emotional, brought back all the emotions.
And new information and body cam footage has been released in this case. So what I want to do here is I want to go through the updates with you guys. I want to show you some of the new footage that's out there and new revelations that came out of this most recent documentary that two of the siblings did with Diane Sawyer. And I want to also recap quite a bit of information that wasn't included in the documentary. So 2020 did a special on the Turpin family, and it aired last week, where Diane Sawyer interviewed two of the siblings. Now, while there was, in fact, new information released, there was a lot of information left out. And not only did I realize this in watching it myself, but my sister, who wasn't very familiar with the case, she came over and she's like, oh my gosh, did you see the 2020? And I was like, yeah, did you know this, this, and this? And she's like, no, they didn't even talk about that. So there is so much more detail to this case that didn't air. And I did include it in my very original video that I referenced in the beginning of this that I'm sure the majority of you have not seen because, again, I published it when we were just like this big on this channel. So what I'm going to do is play that for you, gives you a gist of the case, including a lot of the details that were not in this documentary, if you did watch the documentary. And then we're going to wrap it up with a lot of the footage, the newest updates, and we're just going to kind of talk through it. So let's start with the full case recap again. And it's a quick watch, but it'll summarize everything for you with those details that weren't included in the documentary. And guys, my hair, I get it, is like bleach blonde in this. Just cut me some slack, okay? And the case that we're going to be discussing today is one that I'm sure you've heard of. We've all heard about it in some sort of regard, and it is commonly referred to as the House of Horrors, otherwise known as the Turpin family. This horror case starts in January 2018 when a 911 call led police to a house about 70 miles outside of LA, California, and they made a gruesome discovery. When police arrived, they discovered that 13 children had suffered abuse and torture at the hands of their parents, Elise and David Turpin. Dating back to July 1988 all the way through March 2015, Elise and David had 13 children, 10 daughters and 3 sons. So before we get into the bombshell that happened after this 911 call and this discovery was made at this house, let's go back to some key events that really led up to this horrific discovery. In the late 1990s, Luis and David and the family moved to Fort Worth, Texas, and neighbors described them as not really interacting with other neighbors, they weren't very talkative, they rarely saw them outside, and they say that they never saw the children. During that time, one of the girls was bullied at school for wearing the same clothes every day and teased for smelling of body odor. Fast forward, and in June 2001, the very first police interaction with the Turpin family takes place. And the sheriff deputies go to the Turpin house because there were reports coming in that a 4-year-old girl had been bitten by a border collie. Nothing sinister, nothing crazy, but still their first interaction with the police. Then fast forward a couple more years to February 2003, and they have their second encounter with the police. And this time the sheriffs go to the Turpin house because apparently their pigs got loose. Yes, they had pet pigs apparently. And they ate a 55-pound bag of dog food belonging to the neighbor. Which that whole story is so bizarre. First of all, I guess people have many different pets, but I just haven't really ever heard of a lot of pet pigs. And then a neighbor calling the cops on their other neighbor because their pet pig ate their dog food. I mean, it's just so crazy and bizarre. But again, nothing sinister, nothing criminal, just another encounter with the police. And those were the only 2 times police ever interacted with the Turpin family until this 911 call. In June 2010, the entire family decides to move from Texas to California. So they move to a beautiful 2-story home in Murrieta, California, which is just outside of Riverside County. The reason for the relocation was due to David's job, but again, neighbors say they didn't interact with anyone, that they rarely saw the children, and that they were just very standoffish and kept to themselves. The oldest son was enrolled in classes at Mount Sac, a local community college. However, his mom, Louise, would always go to campus with him and wait for him outside of the classroom to escort him home. She never let him go to campus alone, and she would always sit there and wait outside. The following year, in October 2011, Luis and David decide they want to renew their vows and head to Vegas with the entire clan of children. They go to Vegas, they renew their vows in a little wedding chapel, and they have Elvis actually doing the ceremony. And they actually post photos online, which is very interesting because they were so notorious for keeping to themselves. And in these photos, you can see all of the children, and they are completely dressed alike, similar haircuts, the exact same outfits, and it kind of looks like a little bit of a weird cult. Really quick before we move on, I'm just going to throw up a side-by-side because literally when I saw his picture for the first time, this is the image that directly came to mind. Am I crazy or do you see it too? Anyways, okay, let's move on. The next year, in 2012, the family goes on a big family outing to Disneyland, and again, they post photos online, and these children are all dressed alike, they look like this little cult. It is just very, very bizarre. In 2014, the family moves from that home in Murrieta to a home in Lake Paris, which is very close to Murrieta, again in Riverside County. And shocking, again, neighbors say they never interacted with them and they never saw the children. In December 2016, the family participated in a community holiday decorating contest. They built a nativity scene in their front yard, and 5 of the 13 children were present with Luis and David during this community outing. And now we get to that disturbing 911 call when this entire bombshell really hits and everything begins to unravel. At 6 a.m. on January 14th, 2018, 13-year-old Jolinda Turpin and 17-year-old Jordan Turpin left their home through a small window. 13-year-old Jolinda became frightened and nervous, so she went back in, but Jordan continued and stayed out. Jordan gets a little bit of distance and she calls 911 using one of her mom's old deactivated phones. But helpful hint, if you're ever in a situation like this or you're in a situation that you need to call 911 and don't have access to your phone, even if a cell phone is disabled and not activated, it still will dial 911. The 911 call lasts for 20 minutes where Jordan's on the phone with this 911 operator and she's explaining to her how she and 12 of her siblings have been abused by her parents.
I live in a family of 15 people and my parents are abusing. They abuse us. And my 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
And how many of your siblings are tied up?
2 of my sisters, 1 of my brothers.
How are they tied up, with rope or with what?
With chains. They're chained up to their bed.
He also tells the operator that the home smells so badly she can barely breathe. When the operator asks Jordan, okay, well, where do you live? Where are you located? Jordan replies, I don't know streets. I'm never allowed outside. She didn't even know her own address. They begin tracing her phone because that's really the only way that they're going to figure out where these kids are located. And the operator again asks Jordan, okay, are we close? Do you hear the sirens? We're coming for you. And she says, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I don't go out much. And finally, her phone is fully traced and the police arrive thanks to her courageous call. Inside this house in Paris, which sits on a very quiet suburban street, police discover her 12 brothers and sisters. And they discover them chained and shackled to beds in a room covered in urine. And police say they all look like children, even though 7 of them were over the age of 18. The 6 youngest children were transferred to Riverside Medical Center, and the 7 older children were transferred to Corona Medical Center. I'm not sure why they split the kids up. I imagine that there's got to be something different going on at both hospitals, but still, when you come on the scene and you see that this group of siblings has gone through something so traumatic, I can't imagine that it's in the best interest to split them up. I would imagine that for support, they still need to stay intact and be together. But what do I know? That same evening, which is January 14th, 2018, at 9 p.m., David and Elise Turpin are arrested, and they're charged with suspicion of child abuse and torture. And what's crazy is that at the time of their arrest, when police asked them, why were your kids chained and shackled to these beds, they couldn't even give an answer to police. Obviously, that's because there is no logical reason. As the investigation begins, it takes a team of at least 5 sheriff deputies to remove and empty out that putrid house. And they had to open every single door and every single window to air the house out because of how bad the stench was. Which, it's probably the first time that house has ever seen sunlight or fresh air in years. Now that the arrests have been made and there's clearly a search happening at the house, the community starts buzzing. And 2 days after the initial 911 call, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department holds a news conference. They can't release a lot of details, however, they do announce that 13 children had been removed from the house and that they were chained up and starved.
Was tied up and hog-tied. And then when that victim was able to escape the ropes, these defendants eventually began using chains and padlocks.
2 days later, on January 18th, David and Elise Turpin plead not guilty. And they plead not guilty to numerous allegations.
Their parents pleading not guilty to 50 charges of torture, false imprisonment, and child abuse.
And the Riverside County District Attorney holds another news conference to explain what's going on. And he says that the children were taunted with food and starved to the point of stunting their growth. They were beaten, choked, and chained. I mean, this is nuts. This story is literally ripped out of the script of a horror movie. It is truly disgusting. David Turpin is also at that time. Jordan, the 17-year-old daughter who escaped, told authorities that when she was 12 years old, her father David pulled her underwear down, sat her in his lap, and tried to kiss her on the lips. She told authorities that the encounter abruptly ended when David heard the mother Elise coming down the hall, and he told Jordan, "Don't talk about it, don't tell your mom." That was really the only allegation that ever surfaced about. However, it is pretty telling, and who knows what else these people were capable of, that it really wouldn't be surprising if there was more abuse going on behind closed doors. Louise's sister Elizabeth spoke and did an interview shortly after the arrest, and she says that she went to the jail to visit Louise, and that Louise was so disconnected from reality, and she legitimately thought that she was going to get out and that she and the children were going to play board games. That is what she told her sister Elizabeth, which that is extremely bizarre and is either a testament to her mental health and there being an issue there, or she really is just that disconnected from reality that she doesn't see the severity of what was done and what these charges are that have been brought against her. Which then poses a completely different question of, was she brainwashed, and is that why she was so disconnected? Because the couple did marry when she was 16 and David was 23. So over the course of all of these years, and because she was so young and impressionable, did he groom her to his lifestyle? Is that why she doesn't understand why it's such a big deal and how severe this really is? Because she was so used to it at this point and brainwashed to think that it was okay? I don't know. The paternal grandparents of the Turpin children also soon speak out, and they say that they were completely surprised and shocked by these allegations that have surfaced. And they say that they had talked to David once or twice, but that they haven't visited in several years. And they say that when they did visit several years ago, all of the grandchildren looked healthy and seemed happy, so they didn't suspect anything was going on. So now we fast forward all the way to June 20th, 2018, and the Turpins have their first hearing. And the purpose of that preliminary hearing was to show the evidence and probable cause to the judge to get an indictment. So during that hearing, the 911 call is played. The prosecution also shows a photo of 2 of the children chained up, and the judge rules that of course there is enough evidence to go to trial. Now this is where all of the evidence and all of the history slowly begins to unfold. The children were permitted no other activities except writing in journals. So when police went to the scene and searched the house, they found hundreds of journals that these children wrote. And luckily for them, it outlined everything, all of the gruesome details, all the horrific moments, and basically everything that is going to get these 2 horrible human beings locked up. These journals supplied an incredible amount of evidence, and it begins by outlining how the parents beat, starved, choked, and chained all of the children, ranging all the way from age 2 to 29. And it outlines how the reign of this terror really began 18 years ago when their old house was found with scratch marks on the walls and feces on the wall, which I don't even know how that gets there. And the closets were converted into cages. I mean, it is honestly a Stephen King movie. It is a Stephen King movie. and the abuse intensified over time. What started as child neglect became severe, pervasive, prolonged. The children were confined to their rooms for up to 20 hours a day. They were only allowed to shower once a year. They have never seen a dentist, and the last time they went to the doctor was 4 or 5 years ago. The children were also forbidden to socialize with each other. And whenever they were caught trying to take food, because of course they were starving, the parents would chain them to their beds as punishment. The parents also banned the kids from exercising, and the children were only allowed to sit down or lie down in their rooms. They weren't allowed to stand. Which makes me wonder, is that why this house was completely covered in filth and boxes and junk, because it then made it physically impossible for anybody to stand because there was no standing room? Or were they just disgusting hoarders? Either way, the children were only allowed to sit down or lie down, which I'm sure also plays into why their growth was so stunted. It's so heartbreaking. The journals also outline how the parents would feed the children bologna and jalapeno sandwiches while indulging in these amazing, great meals themselves right in front of them. And Luis and David would buy these great, beautiful desserts and beautiful pies and leave them on the counter to taunt the kids, and would leave them for so long that the food became moldy and infested. I mean, they were truly trying to do some psychological damage to these children. At one point, one of the daughters, who was 9 years old at the time, was caught stealing food. And her mom, Louise, tells her, "Bring me your cat." Her mom put the cat outside and made this little 9-year-old girl watch as wild dogs tore this cat to shreds, making her daughter literally watch as the dogs ate her pet cat in front of her. It is horrifying. They weren't allowed to play with any of the toys they had. When the parents would buy them toys, they would keep it in the packages and put them in the closet, but the children were not allowed to touch them or play with them. Again, abusing them mentally and maybe trying to even condition them. The children weren't allowed to ever go outside, so essentially they could never even have the option to escape. It was also written that the Turpin family, including the parents and the children, would sleep all day and then were awake all through the night until 5 a.m. When the children were evaluated at the hospitals, most of them had muscle wasting and some of them were underweight as much as 32 pounds. 2 of the daughters will never be able to have children and suffer from psychosocial dwarfism, which is a growth disorder caused by severe stress. So now there is an overwhelming amount of evidence here. And finally, on February 22nd, 2019, Luis and David agree to a plea deal. And they plead guilty to 1 count of torture, 4 counts of false imprisonment, 6 counts of cruelty to a dependent adult, and 3 counts of willful child cruelty. And David and Luis Turpin are sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years, which could put them out as early as 2044, which in my opinion, that sentence is very, very lax, and it should have been much harsher. However, when handing down the sentence, this is what the judge says. The only reason that your sentence is less than the maximum time allowed is because you accepted responsibility in an early part of the proceeding. And with that, you spared your children having to relive that harm and humiliation by going through a trial.
Being chained up. Sometimes I still have nightmares of things that had happened, such as my siblings being chained up.
My parents took my whole life from me, but now I'm taking my life back.
According to an attorney for Luis Turpin, 10 of the children have 10-year restraining orders against both parents, and 2 of the children have 5-year restraining orders. And these restraining orders halt all communication. No phone calls, no letters, no visits, nothing. Several of the adult children are now living on their own, with others being in group homes, and the 6 youngest of the children being adopted by other families. It's reported that the siblings also have been taking great care of their mental health and regularly meet all 13 of them together. Some of the children have changed their name for privacy reasons, which I completely understand. And what's really fantastic is these children are not allowing this horrible situation that happened to them define them. And the children's attorney speaks out and says some of them are pursuing education and getting their GED. One of the children is in college. They're all using public transportation and riding bicycles, showing that they're not scared to be out there and they really do want to interact with the community. One of the children actually graduated college and is pursuing a career as a medical field technician. And their attorney says they want people to know that they are survivors and that they are normal, young, happy, healthy adults doing what everybody else is doing out there, which to me, that is so powerful and so amazing. And I mean, the resilience that these children have is truly unbelievable. Some of them have even stated publicly that they love their parents and have chosen to forgive them. I mean, the level of maturity that these kids have is truly unreal. And Luis and David should be thanking their lucky stars that not only did some of them choose to forgive them, but that their children still turned out as great as they did, despite the horror that they put them through for the majority of their lives. Okay, so whether or not you are familiar with that case, clearly it was very hard to listen to. I mean, these parents tortured these children. They were brutal. They were selfish. They would taunt them with food. They were just left disgusting. I mean, the mother had this weird childlike obsession with purchasing children's clothes, yet she would never allow her children to wear them. And they were discovered in actual filthy clothes when they were actually recovered from the home in that raid. And it just screams cult-like behavior to me, especially with everybody dressing alike, the similar haircuts, just very bizarre. Now, something when my sister and I were recapping all this, because as you know, my sister Amy is obsessed with true crime as much as I am. As we were talking about it, she asked a really important question that I'm sure tons of people have on their minds too. And that was, what was the motive? They appeared in court to be remorseful. They appeared to love their children. They were in tears. If they weren't essaying the children or doing anything else, like what was the motive here? Why were they doing this to them? And moreover, you would assume because of their actions that they hated their children, so why did they continue to have more children? And that felt like a really fair and interesting question. And my immediate response was, I believe it all boiled down to control. I think that it stemmed from the father, and I think that then the mother also kind of was brainwashed a little bit because remember, they got married super duper young. And I think it was more just a power control. You know, I'm going to dictate what you can wear, what you can eat, what you can do, if you can stand. If you disobey, I'm going to show you that I'm the one in control and I have the power, so I'm going to chain you to this bed. It just seemed more of a brainwash to like break them down, of course. But again, the reason why and the motive, I think, comes down to power and control. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now let's get into some of that newly released footage. And what I really want to start with is right out of the gate, we see Jordan running. She jumps out of that window. She is still so young, not even an adult, and she runs for help. When she finally gets several feet away from the house, she makes that call to 911, which we heard in the earlier video. And now we have the body cam footage from when the officer arrives and is talking to Jordan. And I really want to walk through that together with you because I had a lot of opinions when I was listening to this. So let's take a listen.
Hi, what's going on?
Okay. I just ran away from home.
Okay.
And I live in a family of 15.
Okay.
My 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
Yes.
Where are they chained up at?
On their bed. Now, mother didn't chain them up just to be mean. Okay. They're chained up because...
Now, what first catches my attention here is she clearly sounds extremely nervous and very much in distress. In addition to that, though, we know that she has been locked inside this house for almost 17 years now with no schooling. I would imagine probably limited to none when it comes to education. So it almost sounds as though she's also looking for the right words to describe what is going on, as though she doesn't quite know what those words are. And we see a little bit more of that as we go through.
They're chained up because they stole mother's food.
Uh-huh.
But I'm sorry if I talk too much. Okay. I've never talked to anybody out there, so I've never...
Now, notice that, how she says, I've never talked to anybody out there. Now, this immediately stuck out to me because it kind of goes back to the brainwashing and the power. You would imagine, hearing this, that the parents probably often said, you're not allowed out there. It's dangerous out there. You don't know what kind of people are around out there. I just found it a very interesting choice of words that she said, I've never talked to anyone out there, almost identifying the outside world as a singular place. And it just stuck out to me. But let me know what you guys think.
Never been alone with a person, so this is very hard for me to talk. Okay.
How do your parents know you left your house?
No, they don't.
Do you take any medication?
What's medication?
Okay, so here too, I would imagine that the police officer is thinking, you know, this young woman seems very agitated, in distress. She, remember, looks much, much younger than she actually is. She's only 17, but she looks much younger because she's been so malnourished. So I could imagine his thought process is perhaps she's run away from home, perhaps she's in distress and does take medication for something. But it's so telling that Jordan doesn't even know what medication is. She's asking, what is medication? Which I would imagine in her 17 years of living that she's had a cold, a headache, some sort of illness or condition where she's needed to take medication. And this leads me to believe that she never has. And again, following her next statement, you'll see that she really never has taken any sort of medication, and she doesn't even know what it is.
Medication?
Yeah, what's medication?
Do you take pills? Do you take pills?
Oh, I don't think I've ever taken a pill before.
Okay.
Right, I haven't. Our parents are abusing. They abuse us. But the reason I called and the reason I managed to get out here, this is one of the most scariest things I've ever done. I'm terrified. But I called because my two little sisters, they're chained up right now.
Do you have pictures of that?
Yes, I can show you.
Now,
I actually did.
This was a turning point, I believe, in this encounter with the police officer, because he asks, do you have photos? We already know he asked, are you on medication? Again, just, I would imagine, believing that this young teenager had just run away from home, possibly was having a dispute with her parents. So, and then she has this grandiose story of, I have 15 siblings, they're chained up, our mother doesn't feed us, all of these things, to where he's like, okay, do you have proof? And she says yes. And she says she does have pictures. And it blows my mind that she and her siblings had the wherewithal to have those images on hand to show, because I just think to myself, imagine if she didn't have those photos. Imagine if when the officer asks that, if she says, no, I don't, but I promise it's true, believe me, would he have investigated this and reacted the way he does? Or would he have thought that she was in fact just storytelling and was mad at her parents, possibly fighting, and ran away, and then came up with, again, this grandiose story of her siblings being chained up and all of these things, and returned her home back into what is, I could only describe as hell. I feel as though having these images was the saving grace in this moment and what really led to the freeing of the siblings, because I don't know that that would have happened had Jordan not had these images.
It happened, and then one of my sisters told me I need to get pictures.
You have pictures of your sisters chained up?
Yes, but they're in here. Okay. I don't have proof of everything, but I have proof that my sisters are chained up. So see, those are the places that make it on them. And see how dirty she is? We are so filthy. We don't take baths. We don't.
How did your sisters get like this?
Okay.
Your parents chained them up?
Yes, because they stole food.
Okay.
But they stole it because they were hungry.
Who took this picture?
I did. I took those pictures.
Okay. You make sure to save these, okay?
Okay, I will.
Don't get rid of those.
I will.
Now look at some of these pictures. It is just heartbreaking. So this officer sees these images. Clearly the alarm bells, the sirens are going off, and that's when he calls in for backup, and they decide they are going to go and rescue these children and raid this house to see what the heck is going on. And now we get a glimpse into what took place that morning, because the body cam footage has been released, and it is not only unsettling with what you see, but it also is very indicative of, in my opinion at least, what was going on in the minds of the two parents as this entire search was underway.
Suddenly the door cracks open. Hi. Hi, sorry to bug you.
Good.
We got a call for a check the welfare here at your house. So check the welfare. So just basically check on everybody, make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys have kids in their house?
Yes.
Do you mind if we come in and just take a look, make sure everybody's safe and everything's okay?
Okay. What kind of call did you get?
Well, we got a call that
You can see how nervous she is in this moment. She's like, oh my God, she came from here.
To find out that this was a house, we just want to check and make sure everybody's okay.
Think she came from here?
That's what she said.
From inside this house?
I think so. Otherwise, we wouldn't be knocking on your door
Did
at
she say her
Sunday.
name?
I don't know. Did she say her name? I don't know.
He's pissed.
We just need to check and make sure everybody's okay.
Once we get in, make sure everything's okay, we'll get out of
We
here.
have a lot where we're packing.
Okay,
Getting
that's
ready to
fine.
move.
No
So
worries.
it's a mess in here, so.
Alright, that's fine.
We don't mind messes. We've been
But
in
I
worse.
mean,
How you doing, sir?
No weapons in the house or anything like that?
I think this is the moment in which the walls are beginning to close in. He's asking if they have that search warrant. They know they're coming in, they're making their way and pushing their way through already, and the jig is up, and they're going to have to explain away a lot of this. She can't believe that this is actually happening, that somebody escaped and that they went against her, which again leads me to believe this was all about power.
Yeah, we got a call from, I'm not sure if it was the young girl that left or if it was a neighbor that saw her walking around the street. So we'll get to the bottom of it. As soon as we make sure everybody's okay, then we'll figure out if maybe she was one of your kids that wandered away. How many kids do you have? 13. 13 total?
Yeah.
Woo! You guys are busy.
Yeah.
Another bedroom back here. You got another couple kiddos asleep there.
Yeah.
Sarge, you got another room in the front right here with 2 kiddos in the bed. Over here.
So here they noticed that behind all of those moving boxes, there was another room. And this is when the bells and the sirens went off in these officers' head, being like, okay, none of these kids that we've encountered yet have chains. What's going on here? And is that why it took these 2 people so long to answer the door? Because they were shuffling the boxes in front of the door to barricade it to hopefully hide what was happening.
And when the officers walk inside the bedroom behind those boxes, they see 3 remaining children, including a boy shackled to his bed. Thick chains on his wrist. Another set of thick chains on his ankle. He's been this way for weeks.
For weeks. Did you hear that? He has been chained in his bed for weeks. More chains.
I found the missing link. Alright, let's just go ahead and detain the parents. Ma'am, why don't you step over here for a minute? Okay, with you.
Now the jig is up and they know it.
You want to just walk into my car? Yeah.
And walked out of the house.
Put her in a different car, please.
As the parents head toward police cars, inside a problem. Deputies can't find the key to unlock the boy still chained to his bed.
Now, let me ask you.
Yes.
Quickly. Are there keys to the little locks?
Yes.
Okay, where are they?
My son and daughter can get them.
Okay.
That's
So,
in the house.
the ones that are in
Of
the house,
course.
they know where they are?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that what this is about?
Well, that's part of it, yeah, definitely.
Gosh, look at that house. It is just the most maximum form of cruelty there is. It's, physical, emotional, you're, malnourished, no education, you continue to breed and have these children. For what end? To what end? It makes no sense to me. It's just unreal. It's unreal, and it is so, so sad. Now, when we first heard about this story, and when I first covered it, about a year and a half now, I guess it was, we heard that all of the kids were doing well and thriving, and how they said they weren't going to allow this situation to affect their lives, that they were going to, rise from the ashes and make something amazing out of their life, and that they were finally saved. However, we learned just this last week that that's unfortunately not been the case, and not because of their own wishes, but because of our broken system, which we all can probably agree that our system is broken. And the foster families in which many of these siblings were placed with, the siblings have now endured a form of abuse again. And while many of them are minors and so details can't be shared, they're trying to fight for the funds that should be allocated towards them, given all of the fundraising and what had happened, and they haven't seen a penny of that either. So they not only are put back into homes in which they still aren't living in a happy life and being taken care of and going through similar situations again, but they also don't even have their own money to get themselves out of that situation when they turn 18. It's so unfair, and I don't know how our system is so broken that coming off the heels of this insane tragedy, people aren't paying better attention to make sure that these kids are well taken care of. And I don't want to say her name on here, but one of the caseworkers was contacted to ask what's going on, and she refused to call back. She hasn't given any information and has been zero help, even after promising that she personally was going to make sure that these kids were okay. And for Jordan, she's living the life that a young adult should be living. She has discovered TikTok, she's having fun, she's posting all of these videos, and you can, to me at least, you can still see the innocence in her eyes. She's just having fun, and it looks to me as though it's a girl who is just so happy to be free, to finally be free and to do what she wants to do, express herself how she wants to express herself, and that is a beautiful thing. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today on the update in the Turpin family case. And what I'm trying to do now is figure out if there's a way to get funds directly to these kids. And, you know, I know it's kind of sketchy and there's probably a lot of conflicting opinions, but it's almost like even if these kids would just share their Venmos or their PayPals or Cash Apps or whatever it is, to make sure that the money is actually going to them rather than this third party who other people control it and then never deliver it to them. So as soon as I get information on that, and if that's even a possibility, I of course will let you know. And as more updates are made in this case in general, I will keep you updated and share those with you as well. Again, make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already so that you can get notified of these updates. And please give this video a thumbs up on your way out because it helps the algorithm, helps spread the word, and hopefully, because these kids still have not somehow gotten the justice they deserve, hopefully, if we generate more awareness, they will. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.